My name is Terumi Sagers, and I am here to talk to you today about culture. My oldest son really loves vinyl records, and so we spend a lot of time going to record stores and thrift shops, because if you're going to play these vintage vinyl records, you must play them on a vintage record player. And so in our most recent stop at a thrift store, he found a record player that he loved. It looked like an old-time radio. The only thing he didn't love was that it had a CD player, and he doesn't own any CDs. But he loved this thing, and it looked like it was only going to cost him $20. We take it up to the cash register, and the cashier points out to us that someone had put a sticker over the top of the original price tag that said it was $44. My son didn't have $44, and so he was really distraught. Mom, will you pay? Will you pay for half? We called, we talked to my husband, we decided that yes, in fact, we would pay for half the cost of this record player for him. And in this exchange, we're having this conversation right next to where the cashier is. And as we finally agree that yes, we will pay for half of this record player, the cashier says, "So, if your parents are doing this nice thing for you, what are you going to do for them?" And I chuckled and said, "Oh, I'm not that worried. He has a job. He will be paying me back. He works at Kentucky Fried Chicken." To which the cashier wrinkled her nose and said, "Oh, don't talk to me about fried chicken. I'm African American and everyone thinks that I like fried chicken, but I don't." She then went on to say, "And what I just asked you, the question about whether or not what you were going to do to pay your mother back, that comes from my mother, and she's from Australia." I left knowing that I was getting ready to teach a presentation on culture, going, she just helped me define the difference between race, ethnicity, and culture, right there in that 5-minute exchange. Her race, she said, was African American. Her ethnicity, race, would be purely biological, coming from her father. Her ethnicity is the part of the world that her family is from, and that comes from her mother, coming from Australia. She also pointed out in that brief exchange a stereotype, that because she is African American, that she likes fried chicken, and given the look on her face, she's not a fan. Race and ethnicity are two words that people commonly mistake for being the same as culture. But culture, really simply put, is the way we do things around here. One of the first places that most people experience culture shock is when they get married, and you're joining two different family cultures. That was the case for me. I grew up in Utah. I am a member of the Mormon faith. My husband grew up in similar circumstances. You would not think we had that big of a difference in our culture. And in a lot of ways we didn't. In a lot of ways we were the same. However, we found out we had one big difference the first time I did laundry and was folding towels. You're doing it wrong. I'm doing what wrong? You're folding the towels wrong. There's a wrong way to fold towels. I was really unaware of that. How do you fold towels? Well, let me show you how my mom folded towels. Now, hint, if you're going to say, this is how I do it, don't say to your new wife, this is how my mom used to do it. Not wise. But he proceeded to teach me how he grew up folding towels. Turns out I liked the way they folded towels better than the way I grew up folding towels. And so the way that my husband taught me to fold towels is the way I now teach my children how to fold towels. Another example of this is, I want you to ponder for a minute all the different ways there are to make mashed potatoes. My husband grew up having instant mashed potatoes with almost every meal. My family, we made them from scratch with evaporated milk and a little bit of butter and with a hand masher. Some people toss them in some kind of mixer and mix them up, but there's so many different ways that mashed potatoes can be made. Why are we talking about culture in regards to kids in foster care? The kids that come into your home might share your race. They might share your ethnicity. Maybe they don't. But they won't share all of your culture. You are strangers to them. Culture is learned. It's learned behaviors. It's the way we do things. It may be that our kids have chores. It may be our religion and how we practice it. And part of that is that there's spoken rules and there's unspoken rules. Spoken rules may be that before you enter a closed door, you knock on it. One of the unspoken rules may be we eat all of our meals sitting at a table. You've never thought to tell someone we eat all our meals sitting at a table because everybody knows that's how you do it. You eat all your meals sitting at the table. Whether or not, I apologize. All these things are part of our family's culture. The kids coming into our homes also have a family culture, and it's not all bad. They may have experienced abuse, and there may be some things in their culture that need some changing in that regard. But in other ways, the things that they come into our homes knowing how to do, and that's the way we do them, it's not wrong. It's just different. It's a different way of folding towels. It's a different way of making mashed potatoes. So what are some ways that we can make their transition into our home and our family's culture a little bit smoother? First of all, we need to pay attention to what are our explicit rules. What are the things that's the way we do things around here? And we need to start thinking through what are our unspoken rules. What are those things that we forget to tell someone, but we expect everyone knows that that's how we do things around here? The other thing I want you to understand is we need you to be flexible. Maybe it's time to learn a new way to make mashed potatoes. Food is a great example of an expression of culture that we can incorporate and adapt in our own homes. What are the kids' favorite foods? How do they prepare mashed potatoes? We can make those foods and we can incorporate them into our own family culture. And it would be a great opportunity to dialogue with their biological parents about favorite recipes and favorite meals. This happened in my home. My youngest son, he's 10 now, but for 6 years now, one of his favorite foods to eat when it's in season is artichokes. Kind of a weird preference for a 10-year-old. But when he was 4, we had a teenage foster daughter who loved artichokes, and she would share them with him. Now, 6 years later, he can't always remember the name of that vegetable. You know, the one you cook in the water and you pull the leaves off and you dip it in the butter. He doesn't remember the name of it, but he remembers the taste and he remembers the memory of his older sister that shared that with him. Artichokes isn't one of my favorite things. It probably wouldn't have been something I would have introduced to him on my own, but it's something he knows about because of his sister. She also had a very strong tradition with her mother of watching football on Sunday afternoons, and especially she had strong traditions around watching the Super Bowl. I had young children. My husband wasn't into football. We didn't have traditions about the Super Bowl. But the year that she was with us, we had wings, we had nachos, we had dessert, we had a party. And now, 6 years later, she no longer lives with us, but my children insist that we have wings, we have nachos, we have sweet foods, we have a Super Bowl party. We incorporated a part of her culture into ours to the point that my children don't realize that wasn't always part of our culture. Finally, understand when you're trying to think about all the possible elements of culture, the spoken rules, the unspoken rules, and you're trying to explicitly explain, negotiate, and compromise with the newest member of your family, there will always be something that will catch you off guard. My family does rest at foster care. We had 2 little children that came to our home. Generally, when children come to our home, it's during the time period that my children are home from school, and my children take them on the tour of the house. It's a little less intimidating that way. But these children came while my kids were at school, and so I took them on the tour of the house. Before they came to my home, I told the foster parent everything I could think of that would make coming to our home sound like fun. We have lots of toys, we have Legos, we have blocks, we have dolls, we even have pets. We have bearded dragons, and my kids love them. And she told her foster children this, and they were so excited. They came to my home, I took them on a tour. Here's the bathroom, here's where you're gonna sleep, here's my kids' pets. They went, cool. Can we touch them? And I said, no, because I don't touch them. You have to wait until my kids get home from school, and then I'm sure you can. And they were so excited, but they were still really nervous. We went back to the living room, and they sat down about a foot apart from each other, and the little boy for about an hour played with Legos, while his sister sat on a piano bench behind him, looking nervously around the room. After about an hour, I went into the kitchen and realized I had never shown them the kitchen and that I had food there, that they could eat whatever they wanted. They didn't even have to ask. And as we went into the kitchen, they followed me in and they stood right next to each other and said, you ask her. No, you ask her. What do you need to ask me? Where do you keep the dragons? What? Our foster mom told us you have dragons. Where do you keep the dragons? Oh, bearded dragons. I showed you guys already. They're back in the bedrooms. You guys said lizards when I showed you. And they both went, oh. We thought you had fire-breathing dragons. But you didn't show us what door they were behind, and so we didn't know. We didn't know where we were safe. All I'm asking is that you be aware of your family culture, the way you do things. Try to incorporate the way that they do things into your family life. And for heaven's sake, lock up your bearded, fire-breathing dragons. Thank you.